The Arabian desert is an unforgiving landscape. Surviving out here takes resilience. Building an empire out here takes a mastery of trade. Mecca was governed by a tight-knit class of extraordinarily wealthy merchants who controlled every aspect of daily life. They monetized human desperation. The elite sold beautifully carved stone idols, promising everything from physical strength and fertility to financial luck. If a farmer feared drought or an old man feared death, the merchants had a god they could buy. The true power in this city resided entirely in its finances. The idol trade generated massive, concentrated wealth for the elite class, establishing money and the greed it fueled as the absolute highest authority in the land. At the absolute bottom of this hierarchy was Bilal. Born free but captured as a child, he lived his life as a slave, subjected to the brutal whims of the city's elite and violently punished for even looking them in the eye. Yet, despite having all the wealth, the weapons, and the political power, the masters were growing increasingly terrified. A new ideology was quietly spreading through the streets of Mecca, carrying a simple, dangerous message: all humans are created equal. How does a philosophy of human equality threaten to collapse an entire economy? And what happens when a man trapped at the very bottom of society realizes that his wealthy masters are actually the ones in chains? Bilal's mother taught him a concept that would define his life. Physical bondage traps the body, but true subjugation requires invisible chains anchored inside the mind, chains forged from anger, vengeance, superstition, and fear. When Bilal looked at his ruthless master, Umayyah, he saw a man entirely enslaved by his own addiction to status and crippled by the fear of losing control over the poor. This flowchart maps out exactly how that system operated. The masters maintained their physical wealth through an economy of subjugation. By generating systemic fear among the populace, they created dependency. People relied on the elite to buy favor from the idols, channeling wealth straight to the top, which the elite then used to reinforce the fear. Introduce the concept of radical equality, and that entire cycle shatters. If no human is inherently superior to another, the fear disappears, the dependency vanishes. Without that psychological submission, the master's business model completely collapses. True freedom begins by rejecting the oppressor's terms in your own mind. You can never overthrow a corrupt system if you are still worshiping its values. Bilal put this philosophy to the test in the middle of the city square. He openly refused to kneel before his master, declaring for everyone to hear that all men bleed the same color and breathe the exact same air. Desperate to reassert his dominance, Umayyah dragged Bilal out into the unforgiving dunes to extract a forced submission. Pinned beneath the crushing weight of a massive stone, Bilal was given a choice: renounce his claim of equality and accept the master's gods, or die in the sand. He refused to yield. His body was trapped, but his mind proved entirely unbreakable. The situation caught the attention of the Lord of Merchants, an elite who had secretly joined the new movement. Recognizing Bilal's unconquerable spirit, he stepped forward and purchased him from Umayyah at an exorbitant price. Instead of putting him to work, the Lord of Merchants immediately set him free. Walking back into Mecca as a liberated man, Bilal proved to the city that the movement's radical ideals of brotherhood were real. Securing physical freedom marked only the beginning. The merchant rulers realized their grip was slipping, and a brutal armed conflict broke out between the old guard and the rapidly growing movement of equality. Bilal knew he had to defend his new community. He began rigorous physical training, taking up arms to meet his former oppressors on the battlefield. His mentor, a seasoned fighter named Hamza, taught him a critical lesson. A sword remains a simple piece of metal. Its true purpose corrupts instantly if the person wielding it cannot control their own mind. Hamza introduced Bilal to the concept of the warrior's restraint. Striking down an enemy in the heat of battle requires physical strength, but conquering your own internal anger is a far more difficult and noble achievement. The ultimate test of a liberated mind lies in having the absolute power to exact violent revenge on those who hurt you, and actively choosing to put the weapon down. The war culminated in the fall of the merchant elite, leading Bilal to a final direct confrontation with his former master, Umayyah. Standing over the man who had tortured him, Bilal passed his ultimate test. He secured victory for his people without succumbing to the mindless vengeance Umayyah expected, proving his invisible chains were gone for good. Historically, Bilal's lasting legacy stems from the moment he discarded his weapon. With his rich, resonant voice, he was chosen to climb high above the city and call the people to gather, a living symbol of unity. True freedom requires a two-part journey. First, you need the radical courage to break the invisible chains of your own internal darkness. Second, you must use that liberated strength to raise your voice for the equality of everyone else.